All right, let's jump straight into this. Today, in this explainer, we're going to unpack one of the most masterful and, honestly, most cynical pieces of political engineering in modern history. We're traveling back to 1905 in British India to uncover the massive political manipulation behind Lord Curzon's Partition of Bengal. It really is a classic case of illusion versus reality, because, what the British government told the public was happening and what they were secretly plotting behind closed doors, well, they were two entirely different things.
So you really have to wonder, why did the British Empire suddenly decide to just slice its most powerful, intellectually dominant Indian province right in half? At the dawn of the 20th century, Indian nationalism was rising fast, and Bengal was absolutely its beating heart. The British saw this happening, and their response was to literally draw a line right down the middle of it. But to truly understand why this was such a massive seismic event, we really need to grasp what was at stake here.
The sheer scale of this moment just cannot be overstated. The Partition of Bengal is widely considered the second most important political upheaval in India, right after the historic 1857 Sepoy Mutiny. When the British divided this immense territory, it was not just some minor administrative paperwork. It sent absolute shockwaves across the entire subcontinent. It stirred up this massive national struggle against British rule that would permanently change the course of Indian history. But how did Bengal get so enormous that the British could even use its size as an excuse in the first place?
Well, this division didn't just happen overnight. It was actually the result of a century of continuous expansion. Back in 1765, with the Allahabad Treaty, the British East India Company first won political authority over Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha, basically bundling them into one massive province. Then, in 1773, the Regulating Act upgraded the governor of Bengal to governor-general, giving them immense power over this incredibly vast area. By 1874, the British actually took their very first baby step toward division by separating Assam into its own state. So this century-long expansion created a province so huge, the British finally had their perfect public excuse.
And they definitely needed a public excuse. So they claimed it was all about administrative convenience. With a staggering population of nearly 78 million people, they argued the province was simply too huge for one single governor to manage smoothly. And, on the surface, that sounds perfectly reasonable. But behind closed doors, the hidden motive was a whole lot darker. It was a classic divide-and-rule strategy. The real agenda was to crush the rising wave of Indian nationalism by intentionally shattering the unity of the Bengali people.
To actually pull this off, the British needed architects. Enter Herbert Risley, the Secretary of State for India, and Viceroy Lord Curzon. Back in December 1903, Risley authored what famously became known as the Risley Paper. Working closely with Lord Curzon, who had directed his lieutenant governor to draw up the new borders, Risley officially declared the boundary proposal. But listen, these weren't just arbitrary lines on a map. They were carefully, surgically calculated borders designed to separate communities. And if you want proof of their real intentions, we literally just have to look at the numbers.
The demographic data here is absolutely irrefutable. The British split the province into two, East Bengal and Assam with its capital in Dhaka, and West Bengal with its capital in Calcutta. Just look at how this breaks down. In the East, out of 3.1 crore people, 1.8 crore were Muslim and 1.2 crore were Hindu. Then over in the West, out of 5.4 crore people, a massive 4.2 crore were Hindu and only 90,000 were Muslim. They intentionally carved up the geography perfectly along religious lines. Let's dig into this just a little bit more to see the human impact.
So in this newly formed eastern province, East Bengal and Assam, the demographic engineering is just painfully obvious. The British deliberately grouped 15 districts of northern and eastern Bengal together with Assam, specifically to ensure a clear Muslim majority. As you can see, 1.8 crore Muslims are making up the largest slice of the pie here. And in stark contrast, West Bengal was engineered to be overwhelmingly Hindu. By keeping the western part of Bengal attached to regions like Bihar and Odisha, they packed in 4.2 crore Hindus compared to just a tiny sliver of 90,000 Muslims. Historically, the Hindus and Muslims of Bengal had stood united, side by side, but this new border actively split that demographic right down the middle. But honestly, there was a second layer to this manipulation that was even more devious.
This move created what became known as a sinister, double minority trap. This was the true dark brilliance of Lord Curzon's plan. At the time, educated, politically conscious Bengali intellectuals, who were mostly Hindus, were the ones really driving the national movement. They were writing, protesting, and organizing against British exploitation. By drawing the borders exactly like this, the British made those specific Bengali intellectuals a minority in both new states. In the east, they were outnumbered by the Muslim population. In the west, they were outnumbered by the populations of Bihar and Odisha. In one swift move, their powerful, united voice was completely fractured.
And hey, if there was ever any doubt about what the British were really trying to do, we have a total smoking gun. Take a look at this quote from a private letter written by Herbert Risley straight to Lord Curzon. He wrote, "United Bengal is a big force. The partition will destroy the big unity." I mean, there it is, right in black and white. No mention of administrative convenience, no mention of helping the people govern themselves better. It was a cold, highly calculated strategy to intentionally destroy the Hindu-Muslim resistance that was threatening the empire.
Ultimately, the British had three main targets here. First, they desperately needed to break the Hindu-Muslim unity among everyday farmers and laborers, which had been incredibly strong ever since the 1857 mutiny. Second, they needed to weaken those politically conscious Bengali intellectuals by trapping them in that double minority we talked about. And third, the main goal, they wanted to crush Bengal as the epicenter of Indian nationalism once and for all. They figured if they could silence Bengal, they could keep their iron grip on all of India.
To get this done quickly, they rolled out a rapid, four-phase bureaucratic strategy. Step 1. Officially name the new province Eastern Bengal and Assam, and move its capital to Dhaka. Step 2. Establish a totally separate high court in Dhaka to divide the legal system. Step 3. Firmly lock in Calcutta as the capital of the remaining West Bengal. And finally, Step 4. Forcefully implement the physical partition by a strict deadline. And that deadline brings us to this incredibly critical date, October 16, 1905. This was the exact day the illusion officially became reality. The map of India was fundamentally altered, the partition went into effect, and the province of Bengal was formally cleaved in two.
So the British successfully divided the land, but did they permanently divide the people? Actually, no. This cynical strategy completely backfired on them. October 16th wasn't a day of quiet defeat. It became a massive day of national mourning. People fasted, they walked the streets barefoot, businesses completely shut down, and no fires were lit in domestic hearts. In an incredibly powerful display of unity, the famous poet Rabindranath Tagore actually spearheaded a movement where thousands of Hindus and Muslims tied Rakis on each other's wrists, just to prove to the British that no physical boundary could break their cultural brotherhood. People marched everywhere singing Vande Mataram, which instantly became the absolute anthem of the resistance. And this outrage, it directly triggered the Swadeshi Movement. Millions of ordinary citizens, women, students, workers, stepped out of their homes to boycott British goods. We're talking public bonfires burning foreign cloth. Instead, they championed Indian-made goods, setting up things like the Tata Iron and Steel Company and leaving government schools for brand new national colleges. And politically, it changed everything. Frustrated by the old peaceful petition methods, a new radical wing of leaders rose up. The famous trio of Lal-Bal-Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal. Tilak gave the movement its incredible battle cry, "Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it." So far from breaking their spirit, Lord Curzon's partition actually took a quiet, elite political discussion and turned it into a raging, passionate mass fight for complete self-rule. It was a total game changer. Thanks so much for digging into this history with me. Keep questioning the illusions and I'll catch you in the next explainer.